Hey guys, welcome to session number 6 of the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. Let's get started. One man with one microphone who got to grade 3 on violin. Welcome to the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to session number 6 of the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. In this session, I'm going to be diving into ideas of productivity and specifically time management. Now, a lot of my students and composers who contact me have full-time jobs, or at least part-time jobs and families, you name it. They've got tons of other commitments, and they say to me, how do you produce so much when you have so little time to do it? Because, admittedly, it's almost like I have a full-time job. I look after my kids with my wife. We have lots of fun family days out, so I don't really like to work a lot because I want to be there with my family. So I only have a couple of hours a day, and they ask me, how do I produce work when I don't have any time to do it? Now, the first thing is, do you really have no time? Or do you have time that is allocated for something else? Because obviously the first thing you need to look at is where you spend your time. Now, I used to teach before I became a full-time composer. I used to teach music in lots of schools. So the way I used to work was I would teach during the day, and then I would write my music in the evenings. Sometimes when I first started working in trailer music, this was quite a while ago now, I was working with a company in LA, and they would send me a brief at 6 in the evening, and I would then stay up until the wee hours writing it then. So it was a case of me sculpting the time out of the time I had. And that's what you need to do. You need to address your priorities first. What is it you want to achieve? If you want to write music, but you don't feel like you have time, you need to just readdress how much time you think you need for music. Because, actually, sitting down for 20 minutes a day, you'd be incredibly surprised how much you can produce in that little time. Now, this kind of ties in with the last episode where I was talking about done being better than perfect, because this helps those of you who don't have much time to write, who have a full-time job, who have families, who have tons of other commitments, because we're all busy. If you focus on getting stuff done, then you can say to yourself, you know what, today I'm going to sit down for half an hour and write some music. And then if you do that, you are then committing to yourself, you're committing to music, so that you are then going to find it easier to achieve that again. And that is the first step to finding the time. It's more like creating the time, not finding the time. You have to create the time, because it's an active thing where you decide that this is going to happen then. Kids have gone to bed. Before I sort of binge watch TV, I'm going to create 30 minutes of time to do some music. And you go, well, hold on, by the time I've loaded up my computer, that's 25 minutes. You go, yeah, great. That's when you have a template. You should have a template, or at least a go-to selection of presets, so that as soon as you loaded up your session, you can go bam, 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 bam. I've got 10 instruments that I know I love the sound of, and I know I find inspiring, and I can just write. Okay? So, once you've carved that time, created that time for you to write, you then need to have your presets, your templates, all these little shortcuts that help you get straight to the writing. And please don't make the mistake of loading up your emails. I do this all the time. I sit down and go, I'm going to write today, but first I'll check my emails. Stupid mistake, because then it's a rabbit hole of doom emails, So, just go in, open up Logic, Pro Tools, Live, Bitwig, whatever it is that you're working with, load up a template, load up your presets, boom, you start to write, okay? Now, the first thing you might need to do is set aside 20 minutes to create a template. I'm sure you can find out. I have lessons in my courses about creating templates because they're so important, especially when producing albums or producing project work, to have like a homogeneous sound in your tracks. So, you know, if those of you who've got access to my courses, or if you want access to my courses, go onto the Training Music School and you can get onto one of those courses and I'll show you how to do templates. But you can find it on YouTube, whatever. Find a way to create 20 minutes, give yourself a template so that when you have created that time, even if it's just 10 minutes, you can load up a template and you can chuck a chord sequence in there. Now, the other thing you then need to start reframing, this kind of ties in again with done is better than perfect, is you have to start reframing your idea of the structures of pieces of music, because you can structure a piece of music in a matter of maybe a minute tops. You know, you can structure it using a region, you can structure it using markers, you can structure it using chord progressions, you can even structure it using hits. I do that in my hybrid training music course, show people how I structure a track using hits, because then, you know what, you've got the structure out of the way, you don't have to think about it. It's kind of like, you know, when you do a jigsaw puzzle and you find the corner pieces, you're like, this is just going to fall into place now I found the corner pieces. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe it's just me that's very passionate about finding the corner pieces of puzzles, but that's what you need to do. You need to then, you've carved your 30 minutes, you've got your templates and your presets, you then, bam, load in your structure. Now, the reason I'm saying it like this is because I want you to acknowledge that yes, it's difficult to find the time, but you can and will create the time to create a piece of music, even if it's a sketch. Because I have had sketches placed on trailers. And also the other thing is the amount of times I've had stems placed on trailers, and the stems are basically just blam, just an interesting blam, or boom, literally $2,000. So that's what I want you to think about. You now need to reframe your idea of what a finished piece of training music is. Now, a lot of the problems, I think, stem from people assuming when you're writing training music, you have to write full-on two-step from hell epics. Yes, if you want to do that, great. And you know what? You listen to Two Steps from Hell, you could structure their tracks as like a 4-bar loop, you know, or a 4-chord progression that just loops for 2.5 minutes. You know, obviously there'll be slightly different sections and some variations, but at its core, it's a 4-chord sequence. The amount of trailers I listen to and get sent to me as references for albums that have 4 chords repeating all the way through. You know, this is the essence of everything we do, you know. You listen to classical music, pop music, you know, the amount of tracks and pieces of music that are just the 1st chord and the 5th chord. Boom. That's your piece of music. The rest is just variation. And that's what you need to now think about. How can I give the bare bones to my music to create a whole track? So, for instance, I'll give you a chord progression that you can use. This is the chord progression I hear all the time. We're in a minor key, so say it's, let's go C minor. I'm in C minor. It's the 1st chord, you know, C minor, and then if I could sing the notes, you know, I don't have perfect pitch. I barely have pitch when I'm singing. It starts at the C minor, then we go to the flattened major 7th chord, so in this case it's a B flat major, and then we go to a flattened 6th major, it's a major again, so in this case it's A flat, and then we go to the 5th chord as a dominant, so in this case it would be a G. So what you're doing there is, you know, the lovely thing about that progression is when you land on that dominant, you're shifting the expectations, because you've had a B flat in there. Your expectation is that it's going to be a G minor chord, but because it's then switches to a G major, it then gives you the tension to return back to that C minor. And I hear that in so many trailers. It was in, I think, about 3 of the Endgame trailers, that chord sequence. And this is the thing, you know, we're all dealing with the same chord sequence, we're all dealing with the same notes, we're all dealing with the same rhythms, same progressions. So don't be afraid just to be like 4 chords, bish bash bosh, and then loop them. for 2.5 minutes. I mean, this is the thing, it sounds ridiculous when I say that, but that's what it is, you know? It's like when you learn a 12-bar blues and you realise, oh my goodness, all of these songs have the same chord sequence looping. They even have the same melodies and the same, blues licks on the guitar. They have the same things. And that's where you get the stylistic things going on. That's how styles and genres sort of become apparent, because everyone starts using the same patterns, the same loops, the same progressions, and it's just fascinating to hear. But this is the thing for you. Your track can be 4 chords. Your track can be 2 chords. There was a trailer for, I think it was Glass. It wasn't my track, by the way, it was another track. There was a trailer for Glass that was, again, this progression is everywhere. The first chord as a minor is we're in a minor key, so let's go to C minor. We're in C minor, and then the major flattened 6th. So in this case, it's the A flat. So we're going from C minor to A flat, C minor to A flat. It was that the whole way through. But you know what? It didn't matter. It doesn't matter, because they captured something special with the rest of the way they treated those 2 chords. And this is where it comes down to what you can add to your tracks. And that's why I talk about the 5 rules. How can you put yourself into your music? How can you create impact? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be writing the track with the same chords as somebody else, as the same as somebody else, as somebody else, as somebody else. Especially with Action sound design, we're all using risers, we're all using hits, and we're all using blams, and we're all sort of staying in the same keys. What can you do to make it stand out? So now you've created your 30 minutes, you have your template because you looked it up or you went on one of my courses. Now you have your presets, and now you've laid out your structure for your entire track. And you know what? That took you 5 minutes. So you now have 25 minutes to make these 4 chords into something more resembling a trailer cue. And this is the beauty of it. This is where you can go, oh, okay, this is coming back to one of those rules again, which talks about, having the acts. And that's what you can do. You can go, okay, well, Act 1's going to be sparse. So maybe I just have a drone in Act 1. And I have like a piano picking out the tonality of the chords. So, maybe my drone is in C in Act 1. Don't know what note that is. And then I have a piano picking out the E flat for the C minor. And then I have the piano player picking out the D and the F for the B flat. Whatever you want. You're thinking minimally in the first act. Then in the second act, think about how you can introduce pace. Introduce dynamism. You know what I mean. How can you introduce pace, change, tension? You could even just say, oh, maybe I'm just going to sound my full chords in Act 2. And those chords are going to be played with a simple C, E flat ostinato that repeats throughout the whole thing. That's another trick. Just having an ostinato that just repeats. Then you've got your. It's actually really quite refreshing talking about music away from a computer. Anyway, I digress. You've got your progression. You've done your minimal intro. Now you've got your Act 2 where you're introducing the full chords played by, I don't know, maybe just a string ensemble, all quite low. You've introduced an ostinato to bring pace, and maybe you introduce some sort of rumbles or sort of taiko strikes on the beat. And I don't mean 4/4, I mean like on the bar, maybe even on the 2-bar or 4-bar mark. And then you get to Act 3. Okay, I'm just going to leave that done. And then you get to Act 3, and you go, oh, I've still got my 4 chords going. How can I lift this? That's when you bring in some bigger drums playing a specific rhythm. Okay? So maybe before the taiko strikes were just like boom every 2 bars. Boom. And then in the third act it's like boom, bum, 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 boom. Something like that. It's very simple. And then you just go, okay, drum's done, because everything else is just going to be variations of that. And then you go, okay, well, I've got my 4 chords, maybe I'll just put them in the brass, except instead of the brass playing the 4 chords, I'm going to give them bombs to give impact, boom, 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 that type of thing. And then you want to have your melody start to come in, or something different in Act 3. The melodies are nice because they take Act 3 into the emotional, into the spacious, into the dynamic. You have these soaring string melodies, or heroic horns, or you can just have simple pianos, bing, 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 something like that. That just sort of, it's kind of like the melody is representative of the character's narrative over all of the chords that you're playing. All of the chords are like all the mess of everything going wrong, but the melody is the character staying strong and sticking through the whole shebang. And there you have it. Let's say that took you 15 minutes. You have your intro is just a drone with a couple of notes hinting at the chords. You have your second act, which gives you something interesting, different, some pace and some hits to give it a more cinematic nature. And then you have your Act 3, which brings in some different flavours and colours from the orchestra, whether it be Brahms or choral brass chords, or even choir, whatever it is, because everything else from here, once you've got your chords and your melody and your main sort of rhythm, everything else from there is just kind of the same thing. You go, okay, well, I'll put some choir in. Okay, what are the choir going to be doing? The choir are going to be doing those 4 chords, aren't they? Or they're going to be doing a counterpoint melody. It's that, that's the only other thing I could probably suggest that you do that's different, that's at the core of it, is having a counterpoint melody, a secondary melody to your primary melody. And then at the very end of your track, just because I often leave this one out, we want to have a finish. And maybe we're going to use our last 10 minutes for this, where we go, okay, I've sketched out my track now, I've sketched out the 3 acts, let's give myself the finish. So you've got your C minor, B flat, A flat, G major 7. So what you're going to do is you're going to extend that G major 7. So you're going to go dun 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 dun, drop, back to the C minor, and then there you have it. You have officially sat down for 30 minutes and essentially written a cue, because everything else from there is kind of just like putting layers on. The drum rhythms, once you've got the main rhythm out, the drum rhythms are just going to be like slight variations, slight accents, maybe some rolls here and there. Maybe you'll have you'll bring in like table slaps, or even just yourself tapping a glass on the 8th note just to give it some more pace. It's all very, very simple stuff that you're going to add on top of it. But what you have done here is you have reframed your idea of writing music, of this whole, you don't have to, I've got to come up with a perfect riff that no one's come up with. I've got to come up with a chord progression that's original. I've got to come up with something that's just perfect. You don't. Just give yourself a break. You're just writing some lovely music, and you're just using the same chords that we all use. Just obviously be careful not to actually steal other people's ideas. I know we all use the same chord sequences, but and the same melodies. That's almost an entire podcast in and of itself. The dangerous nature of copyright these days, because more and more people are copyrighting more and more music, which means that there's less and less music that you can write. Calm. Just go ahead and do those things I've said in 30 minutes. And remembering all the advice I've given you so far, just let the ideas write. You're just writing, you're not editing. And what I mean by writing, you're just putting ideas. You're just throwing it on the wall, seeing if it sticks. And if it doesn't stick, who cares? Throw more on the wall. And then you are letting it be done. You have sketched out an entire track, chord progressions, structure, basic rhythms, and a melody in half an hour. it might take you a few turns to get quick at, especially those of you who chase perfection, to stop chasing perfection. It might take you a while to switch that negative voice off, but once you do, the freedom of writing music, it's like the first time you pick up an instrument and go, oh my goodness, this sounds amazing, even when I'm playing it terribly. Because we're all here because we love sound and we love music, and you want to keep that there at the forefront. Don't let the critic in. And that's why you kind of think to yourself, I need to have loads of time to write music, because you let that critic take charge. That critic sits at the back going, no, that's rubbish, no, that sounds not right, oh, that synth patch is awful. Who cares? If the synth patch is wrong, you can change it. I mean, that's the beauty of it. If the ostinato is wrong, you can change it. But you're not going to do that when you first lay the idea down. You're going to let the idea be planted as a seed. And if you want to take that track further, obviously I can't really tell you how to do that in a great detail as I'm walking around on my phone. Again, sticking to that done is better than perfect notion. But what you can do, obviously, is go to my YouTube channel, go to other people's YouTube channel. There's loads of people showing amazing stuff. Obviously, mine's specific to trailing music, so you want to learn trailing music, go to my YouTube channel, check out my videos, specifically my walkthroughs of my existing tracks, because they're the ones that have been placed on trailers. And if you want to know more, obviously go to the Trailing Music School, sign up for membership, join the community, have some banter, hello. But in the meantime, create a small amount of time. Set your templates, your shortcuts, basically. Your shortcuts, your templates, your presets. Get a structure going. Basic structure. You could just go 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 1 minute, 15 for each act. Doesn't matter. Even if your track's 2 minutes, it doesn't matter. Most publishers like it to be sort of 2.5, 3, maybe even 4. But, you're just having some fun and writing. You're just practicing your art. You're practicing your skill. You're practicing harnessing your own creativity and freedom. Then once you've got the structure, lay down a chord sequence. Lay down beats, whatever it is you want to do. And just loop it. Let that idea go that looping is cheating. Let it go. No one cares. Just put down a full chord sequence. You can always change it, and you will. And then you can always add variations, all that jazz. But you want to have something there so that you can then tell yourself at the end of the session, I did it. I made time for my music. I am worthy of making time for myself. And hey, if I can make time for my music, perhaps I can make time to do an album. Perhaps I can make time to contact a publisher and get my music out there. And perhaps I can get more trailer placements. Or if you're already getting trailer placements, perhaps I can get more trailer placements. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? I find myself there, I do get regular trailer placements and regular awards. I still go, well, where's the next one? It's human nature, isn't it? Always looking at the horizon. But for you and for me, I still try and practice this because I don't have a huge amount of time, hence me walking around with my phone. Practice those things I've said. Now, I really hope you do this. You give yourself that time. It's the pat on the back. It's the award for yourself for being awesome. I really appreciate you for taking the time to listen, because you obviously don't have a huge amount of time to do these things. So hearing me ramble for, I don't know how long this has been going now, probably, I'd say 12 minutes. It's probably about 20 minutes. I'm probably wrong on both counts. Who cares? Thank you so much for taking your time to listen to this. Now, if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more sort of in-depth production tips about writing and trailing music. Head on over to the Trailing Music School if you want to join our membership. And again, thank you so much for listening. You are totally awesome.